Politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and we support you.
But America,
and love are right.
we are not going back.
Okay, well, Lindsay Sport, thank you for your time this morning.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry we couldn't be in person, but thankfully there are tools where we can, still kind of get together, and we still need that hangout and double dates in. But for the people, okay, let me just start. It is June, it's Pride Month, and I wanted to, really lift up some voices of queer people. I think that's important. Most people know and love a queer person and don't understand the path or journey, or sometimes the struggle that it's been for us growing up in Alabama, whether that's with family, with friends, within ourselves. And so I wanted to take this time to meet with a few people and really just kind of lift some voices up. And you are my first one. So thank you.
Yeah, I love it.
Time this morning. The intent is to do one big recording and to break this up into two. And so we will see what happens. Lindsay Sport, if you want to give us a little bit about yourself. Okay, first, Steph and I have a bet. Well, not really a bet, but is it pronounced Laverne or Luverne?
Okay, so I say Laverne. Most people that grew up there do say Luverne.
Okay, so I don't know if I win in that or not, but
I know.
Also we have a connection I don't know if you know about.
I don't think so.
One of my very best friends from high school, and we're still good friends, is Haley Andrus, now Kuntzman, whose mom is Dairy Sport.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. I did not know that at all.
Yeah.
I always saw them at bigger family things, because they didn't live in town a lot and stuff like that. But, oh, my gosh. Yeah. Dairy Lynn.
Yeah. Dairy's the best. I love all of them. But I texted Haley this morning and I was like, you'll never guess who I'm meeting with today. Because
I remember her. She was little skinny little thing. I haven't seen her in so long.
She made the connection for me a few years ago, and I just hadn't even thought about it. And so today I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna do it right now. So from Haley, she calls it Luverne, and I'm like,
they love her. I don't know why, and I don't know how. I'm like, I'm from Laverne.
Okay, well, moving on. Okay, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you grew up, etc.
Yeah. So Lindsay Sport, I grew up in Laverne, which is, for those that may not have ever heard or seen it, it is a 2 red light town on the way to the beach. And that's how about everyone describes it. But what's fascinating is over the last couple years, there's actually been huge plants and businesses move into the city and outskirts. So we have the Hyundai plant there. We have Sister Schubert's Rolls there. We have the world's largest peanut boil there. I'm telling you, we are moving on up. And so, but it's a blink and you're out of it.
You have the Chicken Shack.
Chicken Shack, world famous chicken, put it against anybody. And so I grew up there my entire life. Most of my family, or my mom's side of my family, lives there. And we all truly actually lived in the same neighborhood. So I grew up around a lot of family, aunts, uncles, both my grandparents. It wasn't until the last this year that I lost my grandfather, in a couple years, my grandmother. But, for 35 years, I had both sets of grandparents, and so very family oriented, and grew up in sports, all of them, because it's a small town, so you can play everything, right? And so after that, grew up there. I went down to college in Mobile at South Alabama. Originally went to go specifically for the PT school. I was always fascinated. I knew at a very early age that I really enjoyed people and understood them, and I always wanted to help in some form of fashion, and that was just my first route. And so I'd even volunteered at our PT clinic every summer, everything like that, did my hours, did my volunteer stuff. Got down there. I literally was taking orientation day one. And it was the year that, because I don't know how many people don't know this, it used to be just a master's like program. And this was the year they're like, great news. Now all PTs are going to get their doctorate. And I said, I did not sign up to be a doctor. I literally panicked. Like I panicked. I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because I didn't really have to like study in school to get like straight A's. And so I knew I was like, I didn't know how to study. And I was like, I can't be a doctor. And so like I panicked and went through some changes there and ended up going into psychology and recreational therapy. So again, on the same wavelength of helping people, but I went from like body manipulation to mental. And hands down, my psychology training comes in more handy than anything I have in the world today.
Gosh, I believe it.
I deal with so many different types of clients, people, agents, and I just enjoyed it and was very good at it. And then, long story short, finished school. With that, I did an internship at the VA. And I loved it. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. I was down in Biloxi, Mississippi for like 6 months. I knew I was going to get hired on there, but there was not a position open at the time. But they're like, it is very hard to get on with them in the government. But I did so well in that. So I went home to live for 3 months, hadn't heard anything. So I started just personal training on the side, and I had done that in college as well for some side money. And then it's just kind of one of those things where I saw a big hole, I saw a big need. So I opened up a tiny little studio. From that studio, I did that for about a year. And then somebody's like, please just open a full-fledged gym. And this is in my hometown of Laverne. And so I did. And so, but what's so funny is the day that my mom, I was 23. So I had no credit, no money, no nothing. So my mom co-signed the loan with me. The day we signed the loan, I got a call from the VA offering me a full-time position. And it was one of those moments that I turned it down. And I did, there's been pivotal moments like that throughout my whole career that I've taken like steps backward only to go forward, and so turned it down, opened the gym, ran it for 2 years, paid off the loan. Me and my mom sold it. So that was my first taste of business, of creating and selling. And really in the fitness world, it's either you're going to have to make multi-million-dollar brand and branch outs, or you make it profitable to sell. And so I realized, and so I was able to take that money, move it into another. And that's when I kind of got to Dothan, did the same thing there, came to Birmingham, did the same thing here and again, still I went from, body manipulation to mental to now I'm helping people with their health and fitness. And that's where I was in that space for 10 years. And so I moved up to Birmingham, opened a gym in 2016 with 2 other partners, built it from the ground. I didn't know a soul up here other than my 2 partners, not a soul. And so
choose Birmingham.
That was where the opportunity was. And it wasn't, I really thought I'd get out of Alabama, to be honest. But a friend, Nick, that I had competed on, because I did a lot of competitions as well in that time span that I was on CrossFit team with, he was up here and he's like, we're going to do this because we haven't seen anyone do it the way we want to do it. And so they called me up just to basically run it, be the manager, head coach, programmer, all that. When it got into it, they needed a little more money. So I jumped in as a third. Luckily, I did not have to take out a loan to do that because I had saved up from selling the other 2. And so we built that from 0 to profitable, same thing. I stayed there 3 years, sold it off, and now it's still running. So I've been able to take those next, and that is when I got into real estate, was from there.
Okay.
So, in a nutshell, there was a lot in between that, but that's kind of the process to sitting right here in this chair.
Was real estate something that you had been interested in? What was part of that decision process? And then then how did you choose the brokerage that you went with? Kind of what was that transition like?
So yes, I had always been very interested in real estate. I didn't even know the first time I was interested, and I really didn't know that what it was called because, from a small town, things are just different. So there's like 2 real estate agents or 3 real estate agents in my town. So it wasn't exposure there. But what got me the exposure and who I credit a lot of my success to is my grandfather, the one that just passed this year. He is just completely self-made. When he moved to Laverne, he just bought up a bunch of land so people would later buy it from it. And then he got this huge contract with Dollar General. And so he built their buildings and then they rent from him. So he still owns the building, the land, and getting input from the Dollar Generals and have those contracts for like 7 or 8 years. And so he did that over and over with things. He owns a ton of land in our town. He owns a lot of buildings. Now my grandmother and my mom's basically running those now. That was my first taste. Again, I didn't know that was real estate or real estate development. I had no idea what it was. I was just like, I got to do that, because I saw his success. And so there was just never a good time for me. And then when I got to Birmingham, being my CrossFit partner even was like, he's like, we really need to get into real estate because we really need to get a building. We really need to do this. There was no timing, was just never. And I was working, I would coach at 5 a.m. and 6 p.m. So I was getting up at 4:30 and not getting home to 7 most days. And I'd kind of hit a breaking point to like, I know I want to help people. I know I'm good at these things, but I'm still only reaching probably 40 to 60 people a day when you divide it up between classes. Right. So I was like, how do I reach the masses? And that's when I created my online platform and online stuff, programming for other people. And now I'm reaching hundreds in an hour, know? And then from there, that was what I did the first year between the transition. And then with real estate, I just kept seeing it, and I waited for a lull. I just ordered my test. I took it. I actually signed on with another brokerage before Keller Williams with a team, and it was a great learning experience. But I knew, I've always been very self-motivated. I knew I wanted my own brand, my own thing, and do things the way I wanted to. And so that was when in 2021, I think it was 2021, I transitioned to Keller Williams, Vestavia.
When did you get your real estate license? Remind me that year.
It was like before the COVID era, before all the COVID era. I was able to study, and then in the downtime, it really helped build things up, and then, hit it pretty strong in 2020 and 2021 and just kept building. And then eventually, I started doing productivity coaching in the Vestavia office, and I did that for 2 years. I was in every sales meeting, sat under Jen, and then the opportunity came to move to Keller Williams Homewood, which I live, to run this office. And it was just, I was terrified, obviously, but it was just kind of a no-brainer because that was the whole reason I went into real estate in general. Was growth opportunities, being able to run another business by myself, not with partners. And same thing is why I moved to Keller Williams is growth opportunity, leadership opportunities. And there's just a constant ladder, and there's so many things outside just buying and selling homes that I can do. And so it was kind of one of those things that I was like, well, if I say no, that's kind of ridiculous because this is the opportunity. I just thought it was too soon, to be honest. I was like, it's too soon of an opportunity for me. I'm not as, experienced or older as some of the people in the positions that are equivalent to me. It's always a limiting belief, essentially. But I was like, if I say no, when's the next one coming? This is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. So why would I say no? And so I've been in this chair almost a year now.
What are some of the things that you think you learned or maybe like set you up for success early on in the business, choosing to go with a team as opposed to going for being a single agent?
Yeah, I think coming in, knowing really nothing than what you see on TV or you've witnessed firsthand, you have no idea the back end processes. So coming in under people that are already doing what you're aspiring to do is very helpful. And the way, I knew I wouldn't make near as much money, but I'm also, I knew I needed to learn. I knew, and I mean, I enjoyed the team at first. I mean, there were some things later that, reasons I left, but for the most part, I do enjoy the camaraderie, I guess, with other people and collaboration. I've always been real big on that. And what's so weird about that is I'm a naturally competitive person. Like, I love to win. I love to be the best. That's just how it is. But on the flip side, I am not selfish with that. Like, I truly love to collaborate with great minds. I just love to learn. Like, that is one of the things a mentor told me early on. I was probably 18 or 19. And she's like, to succeed in this world, you have to be a lifelong learner. And that's always stuck with me. And so I did that. I went and learned. I learned things I liked. I learned things I didn't like. I learned how to do some things I still do today. And then some things I won't ever do again because I didn't know how they were run, And so there were definitely moments in that. I was like, and I can remember even sitting in a team meeting and being like, man, if I ever get the opportunity to do that, I'm going to structure it like this. That was an actual thought of mine because it was just something that said that I just didn't agree with or didn't like, And so I was like, I'm not going to project that up there to people that I'm speaking to. And so I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity. I learned a lot, and it was more so for me to learn the things you don't see. But like I said, I naturally get and understand people and can make anything work on that front facing stuff. I know how to be a shark. I know when to pull back. And so for me, it was like just learning the contracts, learning the process, studying consultations, things like that. I've read every book there is about real estate. I've listened to every podcast, and I just soak up information, and that's how, I move forward. And so for me, it was learning actual real estate and then not reinventing the wheel and then figuring out how I wanted to kind of manipulate that moving out.
Studying psychology, you have such a leg up because there's a funny saying in real estate, like it would be easy if it wasn't for the people. I'm kind of getting that wrong, but it's the actual transaction itself isn't bad, but when so many times, and Jen Toomer is so great about this. It's like what drives people, and it's those emotions, and they're very different, and everybody is motivated so very differently. And so having that just like base is so important because like that's something, I've just had to learn by getting my reps in and kind of like taking those licks because I don't have that background. I can see people that do have such a strength when working with clients. Yeah,
for sure. I've definitely taken my licks, no doubt about it. And I've definitely misspoke and mistalked sometimes and let things get the best of me. There's no doubt. But even I am very self-aware that I knew what I was doing in the same boat.
Right. Okay, well, let's take a quick break and we'll get right back to it.
Hey, fellow Blue Dots, don't forget you can find all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button and we would love a review. Okay, now back to the episode.
Let's get a little personal. Do we want to talk about your growing up? Do you want to talk about your Pride post that was very vulnerable? I feel like there was a little tone of like, it's not always like something happy. Did I? Maybe give me a little, you put it into your own words for the and we'll go from there.
I've been, for the most part, I don't talk a lot about emotions because like I said, I spent my life studying them for the most part. And so I'm very,
I spent my whole life suppressing them.
Yeah, exactly. What spurred, I'm going to be just completely, like I said, there's pinpoint. Yeah. I've been thinking about this post for honestly 2 to 3 weeks and about making it or not. And honestly, I could have written a lot more and I got cut off. So I had to go back and condense. I actually what really spurred this. And this is like crazy because you just never know what you're going to get out of things.
Right.
I went to Keller Williams family reunion back in February. Yep. Now, I will go on record to say I am one of the hardest people to prejudge things or say, I'm not going to get anything out of this. Like, I've read that book they're talking on, so I have very high expectations, especially if I'm paying that much money to do something.
Yeah.
Well, the keynotes, and I will say this, all the business stuff was great, but what I walked out of that room with after the keynote speaker on the last day was truly life-changing for me in the sense of, it was Jamie Kern Lima, and she authors the book Unworthy. She had a cosmetic line that eventually just got bought out by L'Oreal for like $1 billion. But she was basically talking about all the no's she had gotten, right? And how she had been rejected over and over, and how essentially it's a form of protection. That if she'd have settled, this one company told her no, and it was to buy her company for like $250,000.
Yeah.
And they're like, no. And she's like, can I ask why?
Yeah.
And she said, and that he said, because I don't think anyone will buy cosmetics from someone that looks like you. And it hit me, not because of looks, but it hit me like so many people judge people by things like that. What if someone does not want to work with me because I am a lesbian or this, that, and the other? And then I was like, I just don't really care anymore. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And she said so many pivotal things, but this other thing she was kind of going on about is like, what has fear stopped you from doing? What are all the things you've missed out on fear for? And it just like opened the floodgates for me. And I realized there were so many moments throughout childhood, so many moments throughout my adulthood, so many moments throughout my career that I did not do something, did not say something, did not express anything because I was fearful of the reaction. And, and truthfully, all I heard growing up too, or like anything like, don't talk about your personal life. You don't know this, you don't know that, people may not want to work with you with your tattoos, or they may think less of you if you're gay. And these are things I hear on a daily basis, And so
I feel like I know I had a lot of that kind of conditioning growing up as well. I don't know if it's a Southern thing. I don't know if it's like a Southern mom thing, but the messaging was like directed a little differently, like of what that was. Mine big in our family was like, it was very, I grew up with an almond mom, like very diet culture.
Yeah.
She ate cottage cheese and cherry tomatoes and was like essentially conditioned to think like, if you're not skinny, you're not worth anything. You won't have friends. You won't succeed. This is the funny part. Like, you won't get a boyfriend. All of that stuff. And that, gosh, having to like unpack that is so hard. And this culture of how you're presented is how you're like, not only like perceived, but received by society. And it just, God, can be like stifling.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Like, I even had some of that too. And so when I was writing it, and that's what I've had so many discussions, even with my therapist, with my partner, with my friends, all these things, to like, I'll tell you just like a bit, there's a lot of them, right? But the one was even kids, the talk of kids. And I didn't, okay, like I'd always thought, okay, I'm gonna grow up, get married, have kids. That's just it. So I'm like, oh, I'll do this by this time, do this by this. And then when I really started digging, I'm like, do I want them? I didn't know if I truly wanted kids, or that's what I'd been conditioned to believe I was supposed to do. So it's things like that. And that's what really did it for me, is like, there's so many things that in my life that I was like, I don't know if I was conditioned to want and believe these things, or if I do or don't want them. Do I like this? Do I not like this? Because like I said in that post, like, you hide so much of yourself because you're so nervous to get exposed, or rejection, or fear, or whatever it is, that I didn't know what was real anymore. And one of my friends, and this is the second thing that really spurred it, one of my best friends, Mallory, we were just in casual conversation. This is that same trip. And so we had met up with them after. They live in Las Vegas now. And so we were talking, and I was telling just a casual story. I mean, we were just shooting the shit, you know? And I said, oh yeah, well, when I was younger, XYZ, you know? And she said, wow, that must have been really hurtful to you. And I was like, God, it is now. Actually, it is. Like it was something I didn't even register that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it was so normalized for me. And it was really from the last 3 months, I've just been really digging in and reevaluating. And I said, I can't, because it makes me mad when I see things online. Nothing fires me up more than some uneducated person posting stuff online. And I mean, I've deleted so many things, but
same.
It drives me nuts.
I'm like, I have to go outside. I have to touch grass. I need to drink water. Like I can't.
And I was like, I can't any longer. If there's someone out there like me, like I can't be silent on that front. I don't have to be negative and talk about anyone else, but I can talk about my personal experience and tell you how these things affect you. And I will say I have 2 aunts I don't even speak to right now because they post bullshit like that. It's not even real, and I can't even do it. I followed
my own mother on Facebook during the pandemic. So like,
yeah,
anybody who's like listening, they know this. I mean,
yeah,
my mother was at the Olympics.
Show the world, like, this is vulnerable. Like I'm a real person. When you post these things and I get mad, they're like, oh, I feel so sorry for kids that grow up gay. I'm like, what, like me? What, successful, running a company, amazing relationship, vacation homes? Oh, I'm so sorry if your child turns out like me. Sorry. Like what are you so scared of happening to that child? Yeah. They turn out like me, and that was it. Like, you're scared your child's going to turn out like me. I hope they don't turn out like you, Right. And so that was just kind of it. It was just like the nail in the coffin after I just was so mad. And I'm going to tell you what, another thing recently, because I always try to relate. And it was, again, another Facebook thing. It was when ICE really started dragging people away from the street. And it was that first college student. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, how long until that's me? How long is it until that's me? That someone's pulling me out of this office, trying to defame my marriage, throws me in jail because of the way I love and work. Like, how long until that's me? You're pulling a college student, maybe here illegally, maybe not. That's not the point. But there was no due process, no right. Yeah. And so it was that I was like, I have absolutely had it. I have had it. I was mad. And I literally sent the meanest message to almost my entire family. I'm not gonna lie. But what was so great is how well my mom and sister responded. It wasn't even Megan's like, first my feelings were hurt, she's like, but then I know how much you're probably hurting to say that. And so we were able to have a great conversation. My mom and sister are wonderful. Can't really say much for everyone else, but for them, they're amazing and, super supportive and have been. We just, they voted things for different reasons and stuff like that. But like I said, there were those just 5 or 6 moments where I was like, you know what, whatever. And so that's what the post, standing behind the post and being vulnerable and saying how tough it is. Like, so when we see hateful comments and it's, and like I said, like your neighbor, your church member, your child, your parent, like you don't know who's going through what. And so when you regurgitate non-facts and just share and comment mean things, I just don't have any tolerance for that. There's no need to be mean. Yeah. You're not in their shoes. And so I just wanted to show the world, like, hey, like, this is me being vulnerable. These are the things I went through and I did overcome them. And I have a leg to stand on. And like I said, like, what's the worst that can happen? They turn out like me, like, sorry, God,
there's a few great points in there. Now I'm trying to remember the ones I wanted to hit on. Oh, first, it's like, what? Like, it would be so terrible, like, for your kid to be gay. Well, like, maybe if there weren't hateful people like you in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
So, maybe that, like, you've got to deal with your own shit.
It's just like how little that affects. Like, what does it matter to you? Yeah. Then when the wonderful woman, like, what? How does that affect you in any way? Mind your own business,
God, when you said that, when is it going to be me being pulled out? I just like, had such a visceral reaction. You know, we've not really talked about it so much now, but I feel like kind of February, March, there was a lot of talk, like with my family and friends and people making arrangements to leave.
Yeah.
And what like people's final straws would be. I've talked to my parents, you know, my dad's like, fuck it, I'm staying. And, you know, and we joke, we're at the farm right now, which is why I'm like looking outside, but it's like, well, I'll just like fucking hole up down here. You know, we, like everybody else in South Alabama, we got a closet full of guns.
Exactly.
You know, we're in the middle of nowhere in the Black Belt. Like, I think we'll be okay. And I kind of joke, like, anybody wants to build a compound, we just need more than one septic tank. But I think my biggest thing is like, okay, well, let me unpack a few things. Well, one, I kind of said, if being gay becomes illegal, I don't know what I'd do. You know, because there's a few things like I know Jason Patton's like, fuck it, I can sell real estate anywhere. And I'm like, this is where I grew up. This is where my family is. This is where all my connections are. And then we have this farm. Like, how do we leave this? But I feel like lately, you know, I think it's the SBC, the Southern Baptist Convention.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I sent everyone yesterday.
hard to overturn gay marriage. And I'm like, you know, it just, gosh, there's so much to unpack. I don't want to get into all the things of like, well, if you want to overturn gay marriage, that's fine, but then don't provide all these legal benefits to straight people because if you overturn ours and we have to go and pay attorney's fees to draw up wills and trusts and all this estate planning that straight people who are married get automatically. I don't care about like getting married under the eyes of God. Mine is more the protection of our assets.
Same.
You know, if something happens to Steph, things that I get, or if something happens to me that she gets, or God forbid, if she's in the hospital, they let me in the fucking hospital room.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's those things that when you've not had to go through and figure out what those protections are, you don't know. It's privilege. It's privilege down to the most basic.
Yeah, and we even like right after, you know, the election, we met with a lawyer and redid our wills just to make sure. You know, just to make sure everything was on both. Is she with it? Because we have, you know, investment properties. We own a primary home. We both have, you know, businesses and side business. And so like, I don't want someone else getting that or that just floating out. Like, we worked hard to build that together for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not, it's not fair. I'm with you. Like, I don't care what anyone thinks or says or like, it is literally just the legality of it, you know?
What do you feel like about Pride Month? Like, how does it make you feel as a person? I know for me, I've struggled with it for a while. A few years ago, I made a post that's like, Pride isn't always something that's happy for people, which is why I was like, maybe I like projected a little on yours, because when I saw you post it, I was like, oh my God, like, I've been trying to find the words to say something like that, because people think it's rainbows and tutu and glitter and a parade and back to that feeling of unworthy. I mean, all the things that take away just like culture and people and society, but like the things that your family isn't just like in general, but like your family members can say, or not even the things they say, but like the decisions that they make, you know, for you and your partner. It's like, I know I struggle with that feeling of unworthiness. And my relationship isn't as important as other family members because we're not married or we don't have kids, or just maybe the fact that we're two women.
Yeah.
And no one has outright said that, but it's kind of like how people move, and maybe they don't mean it, and maybe it's, unconscious, but I take that and really internalize it. And so that plays into like my feelings of unworthiness. And it's just not like a glitter for me.
No, you definitely did not project that. That is definitely me. It is not I have always struggled, with a lot of things. Like you said, I have my entire life, whether gay or in sports or grades, like I really have never felt good enough. I've never been satisfied with any goal, even met or not met. It's always been that, and that has translated. I remember even the first pride is scary for me. It isn't just right. Like, I have fun hanging with my friends in a very safe environment and talking to them. But even if we're like going to dinner before or after, and I'm in a rainbow attire, like I feel the stares. Like I feel, or people, and also people have made comments to me, not ugly, and I think they mean it as compliments, but it's like, what does that even mean? Like, they're like, oh, I wouldn't have thought that. Like, I didn't know a lesbian looked like you, or this, that, and the other, things like that. I'm like, why do you think you need to say that to me? Like, I think you're trying to compliment me, but that's just weird.
Right.
Like, it's weird. And so I've always been very.
Y'all not on lesbian TikTok.
Like, I've always been very private in that way. Like, I'm not flashy with anything. I'm not showy. Now, man, because I have dated many men as well. I was never PDA or flashy with any relationship. That's just me, because I felt like the more open I was, the more scrutiny it brought in. And so moving into the pride thing and projecting, like it's always been a little more sad for me than glitter, because I think it's sad that, we do have to have it, but it has to be like a reminder. Everybody's like, why don't we have straight people month, or why don't we do this? And it's like, why would you? Every day is that, like pride is because there were people like me, and there's people that had it way worse than I did. That's my experience, and it was tough for me. But there are people that were literally bullied and talked about, and still now me, and that's why I told my mom when we first talked about it, and I really came out to her. She's like, I'm just so worried for you, that someone's going to be ugly. And I said, Mom, I'll tell you one thing. I said, there's always been whispers behind my back, because I've heard them. There's always been people talking about me my whole life, doesn't matter what it is, whether it was sports, whether people have always talked about me, good or bad. I said, I promise you, nobody's saying anything to my face. And if they do, it'll be one time, but I'll knock them out. Like, I was mean, like I've calmed down a lot, but like, I'm not going to tolerate it. Like, trust me, Mom, no one's saying anything in my face. It's all behind my back. It's just been lately with media, and over the past couple of years, it's exposed to everyone. I mean, the people have always said those things. It's just not public. Now people are so brave and saying the dumbest stuff because nobody can get to them. But I guarantee you, somebody that comments on something of mine would not sit next to me and say it. Right. They wouldn't. And so it is a sad time, and it's sad. Like, I'm always kind of terrified, even going out for pride. Like, what if something, like, things have happened at prides? There are shootings. We're coming up on the anniversary, or we just came up on the anniversary of the Pulse nightclub. Those things are always running in the back of my head. And so it does take away a little bit of the joy. But yeah,
I'm always be packing too.
Yeah, like, put it in there.
We can all just come with our fucking side pieces.
And it's just, so yeah, for me, like, it's not a celebration. And I think that's the misconception, is people think it is dress up and costume. It's not. It's sad for me. It is, I try to make the best of it, and I do enjoy hanging out with my like-minded friends in that setting. But, it's just something that shouldn't be as a big deal as it is, but it is.
And, we have a permitless carry in Alabama. It'd be the most lesbian thing if we all rode up with some guns.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm not doing that. I'm not rolling up in sidebar with any firearms. Don't worry. Okay, let's take another quick break and we'll get back to it.
Hey, fellow Blue Dots, we would love for you to connect with us on social media. We're on Instagram at raisedredlivingblue_pod and TikTok at raisedred_livingblue. Okay, back to the episode.
What was your kind of like self-discovery? When did you realize you were gay? When did you come out? What was it like, with your family? Walk me through that a little bit.
I had a very unique journey, I would say. I was like confused child, to be honest. And it wasn't until later identifying patterns or people that I really realized. It wasn't something that I realized off the bat. I just knew, and this goes with a lot of aspects of my life and growing up in a small town. I just always knew I wasn't the same. I never felt normal. I never enjoyed the same things everyone else did. I was not, and I think it was more of I never once as a child dreamed about, oh, my wedding's going to look like this, or I'm going to marry this person, or I didn't even think I'd get married, I never once.
I definitely had that chapter.
I never had those fairy tale or getting in the dresses and spinning around. That just wasn't me. It was from an early age, it's okay, what business do I want to run? I was the lemonade stand. I was selling suckers at school. I was all about the business and money from time I was 6 years old, and I just never I have a hard time really connecting emotionally with people. And I think it was just being shut off and shut down for so many years. And I will say, there were times I didn't have anyone to talk to about anything. And I think, but part of that was my fault. There's several times my mom, not even related to gay, some gay, but would ask me questions like, what's wrong? What happened? I noticed this. And I'm just nothing. I'm fine. And that's how I've been my whole life. I've never opened up about anything. I've never processed trauma. I've never looked at things that I suppressed. I just didn't know. I just knew I wanted to get out. I knew I wanted to be a millionaire. I knew I wanted to run a company. It's just that I want, and it's always been like that. And I dated guys all through high school, but elementary, I didn't know really much difference in there, but I actually was really in love with this one guy. I really was. I had that. He was the only one that I had connected with on that level. And so that was even confusing for me. And then about my I think I was a freshman or sophomore, actually. I had met this girl that ended up being my best friend. And we just had such a unique bond. And it was the first person that I ever talked to about anything personally at all, or just talked about things in general, getting to know someone. I didn't even get to know, I didn't know anything about anyone. I just did what I did and went to school, played sports, ate, slept, did it all over again. And so it's the first true friendship and interaction really when I was 15. And I remember even people asking about, and I didn't at the time think anything romantically at all. I was just extremely, and it was an attraction. I just didn't know that's what it was. Until later looking back, and now she's also a lesbian, as am I. So it was probably mutual, right? We just had a very close bond, and it was the first person I experienced that with. So I was always kind of back trying to figure, I just wasn't emotional. I just wasn't connective. I just did my own thing, stayed up here, minded my business. But I will say this, and this goes for my sister too. I'm not sure how me and my sister turned out the way we did in the town that we came from, because it is so close-minded. But me and my sister both, even from a really early age, could spot injustices. Right? Racial things, gay people being we would always fight those things, whether it was we both love first. And so it was when I started diving in, getting with my emotions, things like that. And then I didn't have any kind of experience really with a woman until I was 21 or 22. And so it was then I was oh, okay, this is real. It wasn't. Now, they always laugh when you look back and they're there were signs, there were signs. And I remember Baywatch was my favorite show. I think that's probably my biggest sign. I loved Pamela Anderson. So, And then I married someone that almost looks just like her. So,
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
so that was probably my first sign. Is Baywatch was my favorite show, but it is what it is. And I was just very confused. And like I said, very emotionless because I was kind of trained to be, and I didn't have anyone to talk to that could relate to me on any level. And so finally, and I always knew that when I talked to my family I did not tell them until I knew something was serious, because I still didn't even know if it was phase, because that's what people would tell me. I was in a phase or exploring or experimenting. So that's what I thought it was, but I knew I always knew deep down, there was always something a little bit drawn to a woman versus a man. But I didn't know how to express that. I didn't have somebody to talk to. I didn't have anybody to walk me through that. And so it was just a lot of suppress. And then when and then in college also, even with guys and girls, like there was a guy that I actually really liked, but we did connect on that level, and so it wasn't always just women. It is literally the person that can break me down and open me up, and it really wasn't even until Alana, my current wife, that I really experienced a healthy relationship in that manner, because all the other ones were closeted or, toxic and things like that. And it was just bad situations. And so it was just kind of always a back and forth process for me, but I was processing it alone.
God.
Completely processing. Up until I was probably 25, I didn't talk out loud about it.
Yeah.
But you also, being Southern, you don't talk about problems. You don't talk about family in public. You don't talk about those things.
Yeah.
So I didn't talk about it. And I wanted to be fixed. Like I said, in the post, I would cry some nights alone, truly alone. And just begging, just please let me be normal. Please let me relate to someone on some lower level. I want to be able to have these pictures with this hunky guy or something really, that's what I thought, and
that'd be so easy.
It'd be so easy. And it really, like I said, and we grew up extremely religious. I know a ton about Christianity. I can quote Bible verses. I can quote every book in the Bible. I know them in order. I know all the stories. I've studied it. I've studied religion, and so, I would still pray and call out to God and talk to God. And it really, like I said, that in that post, that one time I was just by myself and just in a very, very dark place. And I was just it was something bad had happened in my relationship. And I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Please just let me be freaking normal. Please let things be easy for me, because I'm so tired of dealing with this about mom. And it was just something hit me in the chest. And it's I did not create you to be normal. You are not designed to be normal. And going into that, what is normal? Everyone's different, and everyone's different for a reason. And, you just have this preconceived notion of what you're supposed to do and what normal and what society standards. And it wasn't me. It's never been me, even aside from the gay stuff. It's never been me. I'm not, it's never been me. And so that was kind of at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to use platforms. I'm going to use my talent to help as many people as I can in different ways, and I naturally love it. I love now I'm very emotionally connected if I trust that person, and so, and I crave that now because I went so many years without it. And so, and even kind of transitioning to I had a lot of friends, and most all are straight. And sometimes, not now, not here, but in previous towns, you'd have people like straight women flirt with you, if they knew, or I'd be like, is this person into me? It's a very, again, confusing thing. Yeah. I've never pursued anyone in my entire life. Yeah. I've never gone after anyone, male or female. And so, because I just didn't know, I don't know, and I don't want to be wrong and then get rejected in a sense. And so if anybody want to talk to me, they're gonna have to come hang out. But that's just kind of, now, like I said, I crave that emotional connection with people, and I'm very open and vulnerable. And I'm not just spewing things from the rooftop, but if someone asks me a question, I don't lie about anything. Yeah. I'm extremely open, honest, and authentic in that. I mean everything I say.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about just being shut off emotionally, do you was that more like something you decided, or was that kind of like what your family expected? Like, we don't, because I try to do the same. I've not like necessarily unpacked all of that from my life, but my family, my mother's family especially, is very just like sweep everything under the rug, and we don't, talk about it. And I have to like really talk to my aunt, who has a better perspective and can give insight on like how my mom moves and how she makes decisions. And I was actually just with her this past week, and like, I forget that like my mom and dad were married for 20 years because they've been divorced now for 20 years. But my aunt was like, oh yeah, your dad moves this way. And so it's really interesting. And there's a lot of like, say we're going to be open, but like not really, and not talk about the hard things. So I definitely understand some of that. And then my parents got divorced when I was 14. I mean, so then I even more just like completely shut myself out. So, I mean, so there's like things that I really understand, like, not being emotional, thinking you're not going to get married, always feeling a little different. And were all of these things having to do with my sexuality, not exactly, but like they're points all in the story that just like kind of make the whole.
Yeah. And I think it's both. I don't know if it was conditioned first or I was actually like that first. It's definitely both. I just don't know which came first, because it was like, I've always, like I said, it goes back to just like being that it, like my Enneagram's a 3, the achiever.
Okay.
And so,
I was going to ask.
yeah. And so like, I see that pattern my entire life.
Yeah.
Of trying to prove people wrong, impress people, extremely goal-oriented, task-oriented. And so when I was not the best, I'd shut down. And so I didn't want anybody to see anything about me that was not perfect or that was not ideal. Even if I was going through a hard time, you wouldn't know it. Like I said, my mom, just because she's intuitive, could pick up on things and would ask. But I had done it for so long, it's like, what's the point? And so, I mean, I can, and this is crazy, and people are like, no way you remember this. I was about 5, and something had like happened on a playground, like someone tried to like beat me up or whatever. And I didn't want to go back to school the next day. And she could not get out of me why. So she called somebody in my class and they told her. So even from a 5-year-old, I would not admit something about someone else because I thought it made me look weak,
Oh.
And from that early of it, I mean, I remember the kitchen I remember everything about that conversation, and I was 5.
Yeah.
And like it, and then it was like, as you get older, it's like, oh, you don't talk about that in public, or don't let somebody see this, or don't. My whole family was so odd. It's like, we all live close by. We're extremely close and extremely family oriented. Like Christmases are huge. Thanksgivings are huge, but there's no open dialogue about anything. I'm not gonna lie, when I went back for Thanksgiving, I had my talking points ready if somebody came at me. Nothing ever came to fruition and no politics were talked about, but you better believe.
Yeah. God.
I believe it. Just been like that for so long. And like I said, I started working with my therapist, I guess, in like 2019. So it's only been over the last 6 years that I just begin to unpack and be comfortable talking about things and knowing that that doesn't make me weak, but more relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. What denomination were you raised?
Methodist, which is way better than Baptist.
Yeah. I was surprised. So I'd argue worse than Baptist.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's not, I mean, for the most part, the women in the church and even the pastor that was present during my life are all wonderful. Yeah. And they were all in support of gay marriage. So I didn't grow up necessarily in a bad church environment, like I was talking to my friends the other day that had an absolute terrible experience. My experience is worse now with Christian like nationalism and all the things going on now than it was for me growing up. Like even after this post, my pastor at that time messaged me the nicest, sweetest, message. And like, he's the one that spoke at my granddad's funeral. You know, I was there with my wife. Like, he's amazing. He's like, I want you to know, I still think so highly of you, and you know, who you love doesn't change anything about you. And I'm like, this is what it's about, you know, not like trying to ban things. And so like, though, and then my mom's friends, like, she was so worried about talking to them, and they were wonderful. They're like, Lisa, who cares? You know, like, wonderful, all of them.
Yeah.
And I've never experienced any hate in that manner. Like I said, I don't know what was said behind my back, but as far as
That's
you know.
On my stepmom's grandmother, my stepmom's mother passed this week, and her funeral is Sunday at the church I was raised. And that's going to be interesting because we were front row people.
Yeah.
Did the thing. I don't know if Steph's going to go. She's like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I think I'm going to ask Cindy, be like, do you want Steph there or not? Because like, I don't want to make a decision and like assumes like Cindy wants her there, but not, or vice versa. Since it's her mother, want to be like a little respectful. Just again, okay, talk about like traversing a situation that like a straight person would never have to. How did you and Alana meet, and then how long have y'all been together? Also, Sport, do you mind? Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 39. I just turned 39.
Okay, I'm 37, so we about the.
I just turned 39 in May. So.
Okay. On the point of like recognizing and speaking out against injustices, that's where I wanted to know how old you were. Like, that's what we grew up watching.
Yes.
You know, and there's this joke I make, and it's like, well, y'all weren't paying attention when you put us in front of the TV in front of Captain Planet and Fern Gully. Like, Dog is the bad guy. What are you talking about?
No.
Y'all wanted us to watch PBS every Saturday. So I think there was things that like we consumed on our cartoons that like, even like for Disney, like, I mean, it like infused like who we are.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask about the age. And then, tell me about you and Alana and how y'all met and how long you've been together.
So we met, the years kind of like blend together. We met in it. So when I moved to Dothan and was working there, we met at the CrossFit gym there.
Okay.
Now we were true, literal friends for an entire year. Like really friends. She started hanging out with me and my friend group because she at the time was hanging with a little older crowd. Mm-hmm. And so I was hanging out with all like the fun kids in town, right? There's not a lot of young, fun. And so I had a house with two other people. We'd rent, we'd have parties, we'd get in town, all this stuff. I was in a little bit in my party era, not bad. But more social party era. And then I remember for me, now both of us have a different version of this at different times, but I guess this was had to be 2014 when we first met. And so toward moving into 2015, 2015 is the year in July of when we got together. Okay. I remember a couple of months leading up before that conversation, like that I was picking up. But again, I wasn't very good at reading vibes. This has been my friend. I'm never going to hit on a friend of mine. And I really adored her. Like we had a great relationship. I would have never crossed that line. I know there's a huge misconception about lesbians just go after everybody to prove. I'm not one of those. I'm not one that's going to disrespect anyone. I'm not trying to get everyone and just for my ego. I would have never done it. I would have never made a mood. I would have never brought it up.
We're not like pulling a Shane up in here.
Yeah. No, that's so far from me. It's not. And people think it is. Like I'm like, I've never gone for anybody. I don't know what you're talking about. But it was like around the 4th of July in 2015. But months leading up to that, I was talking to my friend Melissa, who she's amazing. She was older. She was one of my clients at the time. And I said, I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, I feel like she's flirting with me or like, kind of interested, this, that, and the other. She's like, probably, probably is, and so it was just an odd thing for a few months. Like I said, we were true friends. We had gone on like girls trips together, everything. And then just something shifted. And I think for me, when I started, because like I said, I think I may have been interested first, but again, it was just such a suppressed thing and a little thing, because one thing that most people know about me is I'm extremely weird about my time. Like if time is how I communicate. Like if I'm giving you my time, I appreciate and respect you, and I don't change my schedule.
Well, I appreciate and respect you.
I don't change my schedule. It is my schedule, and I'm like, sorry, it can't fit, right? Well, when I started adjusting my schedule to make something work with her, that was my first sign. I was like, who am I? Like, I run a tight ship, and I was like, I just adjusted 2 things to spend time with this person. So it was like a subconscious feeling. And then I remember one day, it was after we were training, we were just kind of rowing to cool down, and we started talking about different experiences and travel. And I think it was just something, I just looked at her a little differently. I don't know what it was, but I remember that moment being like, I am so intrigued by this person, and I just want to get to know her more.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It wasn't anything bad. It wasn't anything like sex. It was just like a natural inquest. And then I guess, I don't know if she picked up on that and what, but yeah, she totally made the first move. And she had only ever dated men.
I love this so much.
Yeah. And we just grew, and, you know, we didn't become official for like 6 months. I moved to Birmingham. She moved to Mississippi. We did just some stuff back and forth. And it was after about 6 months. Like, I think she thought I was going to be like a cool story. Like, oh, you won't believe who I hooked up with, you know? And where I was like, no way am I getting too close to this person to get my heart broken.
Right.
You know, like, and so I was and she tells everybody, it's like, I tried so many times to end things, like so many times. Or like keep her at arm's length. Yeah. And because I just was scared. I didn't want to get hurt. And I hadn't liked anyone like that. I'd been attracted to some, you know, men and women off the bat, but never like this. Yeah. You know, never to where they had my full attention, never to where I would change my routine or schedule. I'm pretty selfish when it comes to that, you know? And so like, and I know that about myself, but it was just something a little bit different. And she was just so calm. And confident. It was this quiet confidence, this quiet calmness that I don't have. Like, I'm not calm. I'm very reined in, I would say, but I was an extreme hothead.
I laugh because I understand. Like, I joke, like, I have no moderation. Like, it's like, you think I'm crazy, you should be in here. Like, it's
absolutely these thoughts to go through my head on a daily basis, and how I jump from A to Z in a matter of 30 seconds. Wild. And I'm like that with anything. That's why I'm so weird about things, because also like addiction work runs in my family, right? Yeah. And so I'm like that. I'm 100%, or I won't take on anything unless I'm 100%. I'm with you. I'm no moderation. None. I have none. And again, self-aware, I know that about myself. So I have to be careful with everything, you know? And she just kept growing and growing. And then for 2 years, we did long distance, and she finally came here. I even tried to stop her from moving here. I'm like, I don't want you to move here for me, you know? And then she's like, God, you know? And so she stuck with me through some bad, dark times, you know, transitioning jobs, career, not being happy with what I was doing. And she supported us a lot. And now, like, you know, we've gone through waves of that. I've been her support. She's been mine. And it's just a very balanced, healthy relationship. We talk out things. You know, the biggest thing when we, you know, after I started going to therapy and she started coming with me on things, the biggest takeaway that I still apply to everything from those sessions is my therapist was like, just stop. Like, we were arguing about something. She said, it is you two against the problem, not you know, going against each other. And then here's the problem. So how do we fix it? And so we take that principle into everything. And now, I mean, knock on wood, we don't really fight. Now we'll get a little heated and have some things, but we are so aligned on so many issues. You know, we do goal planning every year. We talk about our goals, personal, professionally. Like, it's a very structured thing, you know. But I also like, she is my favorite person to hang out with.
It's such a great mindset.
I mean, she's literally my favorite person to do anything with, you know. And so it's just, she's just my best friend and partner, and equal, and we don't have roles. We don't, she cooks sometimes, I cook sometimes. I baby her a little more because she needs that and I don't. But other than that, it's pretty similar. I wake her up every morning with coffee and kisses.
Oh my
I
God.
wake up to a 4:30 alarm. She wakes up to 4:45 cuddles.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. Alana and I have something in common because Steph's the only woman I've ever dated. Yeah, that like discovery, I went like through such a dark time coming out. I was like, there's things I look back on and it's like, I couldn't just fall in love and be happy and just like let it exude out of like everything in me, because like once I like walked across that threshold, I had to completely shut it off. There's some things like that I don't know if I'm bitter or jealous or harboring resentment, but like I look back and there's things that I'm a little bit sad and I'm a little bit mad that I didn't get to experience that other people did. And I also just like wanted to tell everybody, but I had that same fear of, well, I don't want to just like completely overturn everything. And like, what if this falls apart in a few weeks? And it's almost like the longer you go, the easier it is to keep quiet. We've been together for about a year when I got my real estate license. So I mean, I like shut off everybody. I mean, talk about putting a wall up, self-protection. I thought like it was easier for me to choose the rejection than have somebody else choose it.
Man, that's it.
And
that's
like,
the name on it. Yeah.
And I've like had friends who have to be like, did I do something wrong? And I was like, no, but you were a friend that I grew up going to church with. So I assumed where you stood because we grew up in the same Sunday school classes, hearing what people were saying. And so I've really, just had to like re-engage and think it's okay. And also some of that Mel Robbins, like, let them. Like, I can't control how somebody else receives anything. I can only control, being myself. And when you can't put out your true self, your true feelings, whether it be your sexuality or your political beliefs, like it becomes stifling.
Yeah, man, you just hit on a lot of relatable things for me. That was, and really probably something I need to look more into, because I was thinking about this not too long ago, like you were talking about the friends, and that there are so many people, like you said, that I am at fault. Like I am at fault. I'm a terrible keeping in touch person. I have shut off people at different phases of my life due to me assuming they're not judgmental or accepting, right? And there are people that I would love. Maybe that's be one of my tough goals this year, but like that I'd love to touch back base with and really almost offer an apology. Even some of my college friends, when I was kind of like in this very dark, tumultuous time trying to figure it out, that I just shut them off. Like I just did, because I didn't want to answer any questions and I didn't want to talk about things. And there's a lot of relationships I lost due to my lack of vulnerability and question versus, letting them choose. But like you just said, like that's putting a label on it. I don't think I've ever done that, but like, it's because I didn't want to be rejected. So I made that first move, and I mean, I think there's at least 4 or 5 off the top of my head, probably more if I really thought about it, that I was like, man, I really messed it up because I really enjoyed that friendship, and I don't have it anymore. I don't have friendships from anyone in any phase of my life other than currently.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Before we end this session, okay, I'm going to challenge you to reach out to some of those people. I will think back on ones. I've done a pretty good job. Sometimes with real estate, it like helps when people like re-enter your life, and then there's an opportunity to work through that. But because like I was from Birmingham, I'm gonna think there's some people I've done that with, and I will also do the same, so we can do it together. Well, not together, but at the same time, and then we can get back together and see how it Okay, I think this is a great break on this one. And then on the next, let's get into politics. And I want to talk some hoops. So,
Yeah. My love, my first love.
God, man, it is my new love, and I can't stop.
Wow.
Hey, fellow Blue Dots. Thanks for tuning in to our first installment of the Raised Red Living Blue Pride Special. To hear more of my conversation with Lindsay Sport, don't forget to tune in next week. You can find all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and full video versions on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we would love a review. You can also connect with us socially on Instagram and TikTok. Keep up the fight. We love y'all.
Politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and we support you.
But America